Good morning, everyone. It's Friday, June the 12th, 2026. Welcome to the inaugural version of Guiding Your Career. I'm John Self. As we finish out this week, there are three major news stories that continue to affect the economy and they could transform the current job market. So when we talk in Guiding Your Career, we write about issues in Guiding Your Career. Sometimes it sounds political, but it's really more geared to the job market, what you need to do in order to be competitive and to be successful. So let's get started. The three issues are, of course, the war in Iran, and we have developments on that early this morning. The ongoing saga of AI impact. Is it going to take your job, or is it just a lot of hype that will never fulfill its potential? The third issue, which is more concerning from our perspective, is the data center development and the huge amounts of debt that companies are investing in this concept before a valid business case is made about whether that money can ever be recouped in revenue. So let's get started. First of all, let me start off by introducing myself if you don't know me. I spent more than 35 years in the executive search business. I spent a lot of time interviewing people, probably over 9,000 people. I worked across 40 states. I've worked in 6 countries on 4 continents. And if I ever get on another airplane, it'll be too soon. So I also started my career as a crime writer and an investigative journalist. Some people say that was probably a reason I was so successful in search. But I understand the interview. I understand how to sell yourself in an interview. So I do a lot of work with clients in that regard. The Guiding Your Career mission. We are here to provide you information and insight to help you manage your career. And if you go into the job market, to make sure you can accelerate that process. The rules have all changed. If you haven't been in the market in a while, it is remarkably different. So, you need to be prepared to go into the market. And you need to understand what those, quote, new rules are. And so that's what we help people do with the newsletter. It's essentially a little mini coaching session every day. It includes a quote that's based on the theme of that issue, a big idea, whether it's about interviewing or marketing yourself or the new AI or the new LinkedIn algorithm, whatever. We have the big idea, and then we have 3 action strategies to help you implement that idea. Finally, we have a question and then a final thought. So we're using a version of James Clear's incredibly successful 3-2-1 weekly newsletter, and we hope you'll give us a try at Guiding Your Career. It is a subscription. We can arrange for you to have a trial subscription if you'd like. Just email me at John Self Perspective. It's a new email address, johnselfperspective@gmail.com. johnselfperspective@gmail.com. We can arrange for you to have a 2 or 3 week trial opportunity. And we also have a monthly subscription, reasonably priced, like just about everybody else is on Substack. And then we have an annual subscription, which also includes some value add with discounted fees for interview training, for mock interviews, that sort of thing. So I hope you'll give the magazine a look. You can find us on Substack at Guiding Your Career. We publish each business day at 8 a.m. Central Time, and we try to stay close to that time. And so far, we've done a pretty good job. Again, the options, every time you look at our newsletter, there'll be a subscribe button. Click that subscription button, and it'll give you all the current options for subscription. So let's get busy and talk about what's happened in the overnight with the Iran war. Trump has canceled additional attacks, saying a deal has been reached. Tehran has said a deal has not been completely reached, but then this morning they were a little bit more comprehensive and said, yes, we're close to a deal, but now the deal must include that Israel will stop all hostilities in Lebanon, and that may be problematic. So we've talked about having a deal 38 times now. And we'll find out if this is something that can be done. The longer this goes on, the more economic damage will be done. Iran says that it has agreed, again, to most of the provisions, but Iran says, President Trump tends to change his mind. What happens with that is that Trump basically believes that negotiations are a zero-sum game, a winner and a loser. Based on his narcissism, which is fairly well established, he doesn't like to lose, and he will jump through hoops to avoid losing or to appear he's lost. So when he says Iran, the deal must involve Israel, that could be a wrinkle because he doesn't necessarily control Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. In Palace, the Iranians have also said we're not going to yield control over the Strait of Hormuz, which is a red line for the president. So there's any number of deals that could break down here. And we'll find out how that goes forward. There will be a lot of posturing, as again, because if Trump's made concessions, he won't admit that he has. So anything could happen. The problem is, the longer this goes on, the more dangerous it gets economically. The SPR will hit the red line in early July, according to the analysts that we subscribe to in a lot of people. But one most notable, Matt Randolph in Oklahoma, who's been a major oil producer and has had his own firm for a period of time and is highly regarded for his accuracy of his projections. He's saying, based on what the majors are telling him, first or second week into July, we're going to be passing the red line on the strategic petroleum reserves, which means that they won't be able to they won't be able to hedge the market anymore. So that's when oil traders in Houston and around the country will begin bidding up the price of oil to ensure they have inventory. The price of oil you see on your TV screen is a futures contract. It is not the price of oil on that given day. When, for example, if oil's showing at $92 today, and I haven't checked it this morning, probably at the refinery dock, it's probably close to $130 to $140 a barrel. Industry people explain that there is a gap between the two areas. And the Strait of Hormuz reopening is going to take several months. You'll start seeing, if it opens, the immediate crisis on concern, the psychological issue that we'll have shortages will be alleviated, but it will take several months to get the flow of oil and other commodities going again. And the reason that's important is, Japan, the Southeast Asia, Vietnam and other countries depend on the Strait of Hormuz for a lot of their oil. And that's the hub of American manufacturing. That in India. India also is heavily dependent on the Strait of Hormuz oil. And so, and also with fertilizer and helium. Helium is used to make when they make generic drugs. So it can affect the United States. It can affect the United States economy. In fact, the global economy. And that's something you have to really pay attention to. Okay. The AI. Gosh, we've been following this for forever, haven't we? We're kind of from doomsday to dud. It's going to wipe out all these jobs, millions of jobs, and there are going to be people who can never work again. Or we're hearing it's not as good as everybody says it is. And then you have a lot of the U.S. people using large language models, and then China now has something called DeepSeek Vision 4 or Volume 4, and it's a different approach to AI computing. It doesn't require as much horsepower. It's cheaper. It's open source. And if major corporations in the United States get frustrated with the OpenAI large language model and the licensing fees, they may turn to an open source from China or other sources. And that could have a huge impact on the U.S. economy. Why? Because people in this whole space, whether it's Oracle, Microsoft, and others, have spent tons of money, including Meta, have spent tons of money on data center development because the large language models really require that much compute. So, if that suddenly the technology speeds up and bypass or it exceeds past what these data centers can provide, you're going to have a real problem with paying off the debt, and that could have a huge ripple effect. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. The extent of the job disruption still is unclear. I'm saying I'm one of these people who thinks it's going to be more than less, but I also believe that it's going to take a little bit longer to get there than most people. The technology is growing fast, but that does not necessarily equate to fewer jobs immediately. It's moving at a high rate of speed, but it does not equate to immediate loss of jobs. Again, there's a lot of mixed opinions on this. Several companies have started using AI and order entry and some other things and have stopped because it was too expensive. It made too many mistakes. It wasn't allowing them to achieve the productivity goals they were trying to achieve. The ongoing saga of AI, from doomsday to dud. The only certainty here is uncertainty. And what do we mean by that? Well, there are people that when it first was introduced, the concept, people said, gosh, based on the concept, millions and millions of jobs are going to be wiped out. There'll be a huge problem of assimilating people who have no jobs. How do we do that? And then we said, well, it's actually not going to take jobs. It's going to make people more productive. And then it's going to make people more productive, but it is going to wipe out a lot of jobs. Okay, so we're seeing some jobs be eliminated. We're seeing jobs put on hold, and that's one of the reasons you see a prolonged recession in executive and senior management hiring. Companies are saying, "Hey, we may not need all those people in the future," and that's a opinion or assessment they've been making since they recovered from the COVID virus. So the use of the technology is really unclear yet how effective it will be. And there's mixed opinions, and some companies said it's too expensive. PwC did a big survey of CEOs, and they said, we're not sure about this because it's costing us more. The financial consequences shaping this debate are pretty significant, and although short term, getting rid of jobs is a threat. It's happening to some extent. It's not hugely widespread. I like that. Hugely widespread. And so, that's not the biggest short-term threat to employment. I think the bigger threat is the data center development issue because it is a critical unresolved issue. Companies like Meta, Oracle, and others are spending hundreds of billions of dollars on this, mainly money they're borrowing to build these centers. And if the technology is growing, is accelerating as fast as they say it is, will the technology that's being developed in the chips exceed the need for the data centers? Now, the deep program that the DeepSeek that China has put out, and they're now in version 4, it's cheaper, it's open resource, it doesn't require expensive licensing. And if that becomes the adopted standard in the United States, that's going to have a huge impact on the financial position of Meta, Oracle, and a whole host of other big-time tech companies that are investing significant amounts of money in that and borrowing huge amounts of money. So this is an issue that's critical. You don't like to see people borrowing all this money with an unproven business case. For example, OpenAI is on the hook to Oracle for about $300 billion. And a major default here because so much money is being spent, because these companies really are keeping the market propped up, stock market propped up. If there is a default, if there is a trickle-down effect, you could see something on the order of the 2008 multiplied by 10x factor.
If this starts to come tumbling down, it's going to be a train wreck. Oracle, in my opinion, is going to be the poster child for the AI bubble bursting when it eventually does. I don't know when that will be. So they have $250 billion, what's called off-balance sheet obligations, and that's to build these data centers. Now, this $250 billion, you won't find it on the balance sheet. These are contracted, can't get out of it. They owe this money to build these data centers between now and 2030. The problem is they are free cash flow negative because they're spending so much money. It's going to be $100 billion between now and 2030. They don't have that much cash to cover it. They have $39 billion in cash. So that means they either have to sell stock or issue new bonds, go further into debt. They're counting on $300 billion in revenue from OpenAI. That's what OpenAI has agreed to. What happens if OpenAI can't pay? What happens if all the expectations for the amount of compute in 2030, the 5 gigawatts, doesn't happen? We don't have the energy, we don't have the water. Well, then OpenAI can't pay their bills. OpenAI, also their CFO, just last week told staff that she has doubts about whether the company's revenue growth projections are able to be met. I mean, we're still in the early stages of AI, and OpenAI is already starting to question whether they can meet their revenue growth, which theoretically should affect how much that they can afford to pay Oracle. So I really think Oracle is going to be left holding the bag.
Left holding the bag is a scary thing. So how will this type of AI infrastructure crisis play out in the job market? It could have a massive trickle down effect. And again, it could have a 2008 Great Recession multiplied by 10x effect on the economy. There could be huge layoffs. So this is a pretty serious thing. It's not a panic issue today, but you can't sit back and say, well, that'll never happen. There are too many big companies involved. Well, that's exactly what people said about the real estate crisis and the real estate bubble. Real estate will never go down. Well, it did. And a lot of people are still trying to recover some of their lost investments all these years later. So pay attention to this. If you're not job search ready, get job search ready. Because if you start to see massive layoffs, you want to be in the market ahead of everybody else, or you want to be better prepared than everybody else, because it's intense now in terms of competition. If this blows up, and it could be unbelievably difficult to find a new job. So you don't want to go into the market and then have to take 2 or 3 months to try to figure out how to be more effective as a job seeker. It is definitely different than 5 years ago. It's hugely different in the last 10 years. I mean, it's just night and day. So it's too soon to tell whether you're going to have an AI bubble. This guy and a lot of other people think it will burst. We just don't know when. So the probably the best thinking is be job search ready. The jobs report in May was pretty strong, but these were primarily staff and hourly positions. So it did not include a lot of executive hiring. And that's why we say the white collar recession continues. It's been going on since really right after the COVID issue was resolved. The time to hire sequence for an executive and manager is still running 8 to 14 months. Now, some people find it early, they find jobs quicker. The big problem is a lot of people historically have always relied on online. People don't like to network. People don't like to build a network. It makes them uncomfortable because they don't want anybody calling them, so they think they shouldn't call anybody else. That's exactly the wrong-headed position to take. The people who are getting jobs now are getting referred to those jobs. 70 to 80% of the best jobs now are not even listed in those bloody awful online application processes. And that online application can take you 60 to 90 minutes to do, especially if you have to fill out an application. So don't waste your time doing that. Build a network. Build a network. Build a network, because most of these jobs are going to be filled by referral. With more applicants, there are more applicants than there are jobs. Employers are being extremely selective. So not only is the competition just to get to the table intense, once you get there, you have to do a better job selling your value, educating them on what you can do for them than your competitors. If you don't go into it with that competitive mindset, you'll be in trouble. They are interested in hiring value. What does that mean? It doesn't mean you got an MBA from Harvard. That's great. Cost you a lot of money, but that's not your value. Your value is what you've accomplished, your prior work that's relevant to what that employer needs you to do. And so you want to be sure you're presenting relevant, quantifiable accomplishments. They need to be quantifiable. That makes your case that much stronger. Relevant meaning, do those accomplishments match up with what that employer needs? You must sell yourself. Now, I know a lot of people get very antsy when I say that, and I always refer them to Daniel Pink, an author in Washington, D.C., who's written some just remarkable books on business and sociology and the sociology of business. And he once said, 1 in 9 people in America are in sales. and so are the other eight. So you're in that other eight group, and if you're not selling yourself, you're going to be behind the eight ball. You'll be on the sidelines wondering why you can't get back in the game. So you have to sell yourself. Plus, in order to complete that, to round out that selling process, you got to be sure that you select references in advance of the search, that people that can specifically talk about your value. Not that he's a nice guy, or he goes to church, or we're in the club together. I watch him at work and he seems to do a good job. Those are not good references. They need to be able to speak specifically to your specific accomplishments. And then finally, you got to close the deal. You got to ask for the job. You got to make the commitments. Because if you don't, somebody else will. And if somebody else does, they'll get the job. I don't care how qualified you are. If somebody comes along that's qualified, may not be as qualified or may not be as smart as you, but if they come along and do a better job communicating their value, they're going to get hired and you're going to be left behind. So keep that in mind. Close the deal after you finish interviewing. Let them know you want the job. Make commitments about what they can expect from you in terms of performance. I want to thank you for watching today. It's been an experience, and if this debuts a few minutes late, I apologize. We're going to have to do some post production editing. We'll get this out to you. Let us know what you think. Again, I'm johnselfperspective@gmail.com. johnselfperspective@gmail.com. We hope to see you next week in writing, and Monday through Friday, and we'll be sending out our editorial plan or schedule for the week. So Sunday afternoon, you can see what our planned big ideas are for the week. Thanks for watching, everybody. We appreciate you being here, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.